There are a myriad of advice given to children. Be kind, make mistakes, wash your hands. But the one I heard most frequently growing up was keep trying. The walls of my grade school classroom were riddled with posters, usually depicting images of people solving a complicated math equation on a chalkboard or winning a race, usually accompanied with quotes reading, "Never give up." Waxing cartoons of children exploring forests as if they had all the time in the world were usually interrupted with commercials telling the story of another 7-year-old who won a race. Stories like this made me feel not hopeful, but instead rushed. You're almost 18, 30, 50. Aging to a milestone age is like death to some and rebirth to others. You're thrown into the world before you can fully track it. Despite the seemingly ubiquitous human experience, no individual is alike. We all have different goals. Goals we can categorize. There are extrinsically motivated goals. These are goals that entail receiving fame, reverence, fortune. Some may strive for this just so that their grandmothers have something to brag about to other grandmas at their weekly tea. And in that regard, the overachiever, their overachieving will depend on another person. There are also intrinsically motivated goals. These entail feeling content within your surroundings in relation to yourself. Both are buttressed by money and thus buttressed by the favorable opinion of others. Because being well regarded is an incredibly effective way to receive money because of the connections you make. But besides cash, actually because of cash, subsequently, both are buttressed by hard work, overwork, overachievement, perfectionism. These are all words that, despite their negative connotation in work-driven societies, bring satisfaction to many when attributed to them. You may know those people, or maybe you are one of them. When someone says you're working too hard, you pretend to be offended, but you smile. It's like saying your biggest flaw is that you're a perfectionist. The idea that your face is gaunt or you're being crushed by the number of books you're holding is almost romantic to some. This idea of romanticizing perseverance to spite your circumstances is found not only in art and poetry itself, but in the starving artist as an entity itself. There's an innate human desire to justify, to be significant, a quality emphasized from childhood in America. America is notorious for its toxic work culture. American philosophers take this into account. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "You can't fly, run. You can't run, walk. You can't walk, crawl. But by all means, keep moving." Now, I'm sure many teenagers turn to these words as their mantra when the caffeine fails and they need to get their homework done. But I fear that some of them may interpret this as an exhortation to work themselves to the bone, rather than how I personally interpret it. King is emphasizing the utility of any contribution, whether big or small, whether mighty or accessible. His overall point was encouraging the youth to join the civil rights movement, even if it was an individual and thus small contribution. When I'm old and gray and I reflect on my life, I hope to see the smiles of the people I interacted with, not the blacked out audience at a violin recital. Because the yearning of many to be remembered after death has plagued civilizations when impulsive leaders who are desperate to go down in history will use drastic, unethical measures to accomplish it. Even you may feel fearful for the last time someone will utter your name. I wouldn't be, because no matter how little you've done or how little you've been thought about, you lived. Your existence does not depend on the acclaim of others. It is the one thing that stands on its own. Even though one knows that you nursed a butterfly to health when you were 42, no one can take that away from you. Nothing can negate the fact that you did it. No amount of dirt in the world can bury up that butterfly that lives another day. Nothing is small enough not to exist. But the discussion of hustle culture's harms, while topical, is certainly not new. It's been discussed before someone who didn't want to do their work or their homework, before Martin Luther King Jr. One notable occurrence of such criticism is through the story of Siddhartha Gautama, or as we may know him as one of the Buddhas. In the 5th century BC, a Hindu prince was raised in debauchery and he is still left unsatisfied. Once he ventured outside of his kingdom, he saw the people of his kingdom struggling, a feeling to which he could not relate, but as a human could empathize with. He ventured out to find a way to stop the suffering and became a hermit, purely ascetic, but realized he was too stark to think clearly. So he then paved the middle path, which in Buddhism refers to the balance between the pursuit of reaching a higher plane of existence and grounding oneself in the earth. But One could argue that trying your best can benefit yourself and societal advancement, but all too often, our attempts to bring to society are interfered with our desires to be admired. Take, for example, the high school student who, instead of spending money on a donation towards the codification of real solutions, will spend that money on a plane ticket to go somewhere to volunteer, which in some cases is an endeavor that can be ineffective and sometimes worse, harmful. They'll choose a less altruistic method because volunteering looks better on a transcript than a donation does. In the charitable contribution aspect of overachieving, at least to the overachiever, their efforts are more emphasized than the result. And that's because the overachiever is not a selfless person. Their feeling of arrogance is conducive to their feeling of obligation. Because overachieving and hustle culture promotes a warped view of good deeds when all you can see is how it'll benefit you. It focuses too much on beating the odds rather than actually fixing the system as a whole, putting responsibility solely on the individual rather than the state as a whole. When you're done with this, and you should go home and rest when you can, but when you can, cut yourself or anybody else some slack when the situation presents itself. When you have the energy to reflect, think about what you want, not need, but want. I want to watch those leisurely cartoons. I want to learn something not because it will benefit me later, but because I'm interested in it. I want to do what I want. Thank you.